we'll be talking about the Gimpy tree scientific name, Dendrocnide moroides, also known as the suicide plant. It is a plant in the nettle family, and its sting has been described as feeling like having hot acid poured over the area while being electrocuted simultaneously. If you are stung by the plant, you should not rub the area, but you should get a pair of tweezers and remove visible hairs and get a waxing pad and put it over the affected area and remove it. This will remove hairs that have been deep into the skin. Compared to how the plant sting is described, there's only been one confirmed death due to the tree. It is covered in tiny needle-like hairs called trichromes that act like hypodermic needles. Once stung, they can stay lodged in your skin for up to a year. The tip of the trichromes is structurally weak, allowing it to break at the point and deposit its toxins in the victim. An actual account of the sting, and quote from it was, "For 2 or 3 days the pain was almost unbearable. I couldn't work or sleep. I remember it feeling like there were giant hands trying to squash my chest. Then it was pretty bad pain for the fortnight or so. The sting persisted for 2 years and reoccurred every time I had a cold shower. There's nothing to rival it. It's 10 times worse than anything else."
The Bradford sweet poisoning were a series of accidents due to negligence and carelessness that occurred on the 30th of October 1858, when a sweets salesman, William Hardacre, or Humbug Billy, purchased a new batch of mint humbugs from a confectioner. Due to the price of sugar at the time, he would substitute it with gypsum powder. This would have been called daff, and that meant he had to go to the pharmacy. At the pharmacy, a new tech was working, William Godacre. He accidentally gave the confectioner 5.4 kilograms of arsenic instead of daff. This mistake remained unnoticed throughout the making process of the sweets and was sold by Humbug Billy. He sold a majority of his stock, and after that night, on the 1st of November, Hardacre, the chemist, and the confectioner were all charged with manslaughter.
The modern use of chemical weapons began with World War I, when both sides to the conflict used poisonous gas to inflict agonizing suffering and to cause significant battlefield casualties. Such weapons consisted of well-known commercial chemicals put into standard munitions such as grenades and artillery shells. Chlorine, phosphine, a choking agent, and mustard gas, which inflicts painful burns on the skin, were among the chemicals that we used. The results were indiscriminate and often devastating. 100,000 deaths resulted. Since World War I, chemical weapons have caused since more than 1 million casualties globally. As a result of public outrage, the Geneva Protocol, which prohibited the use of chemical weapons in warfare, was signed in 1925. While a welcome step, the protocol had several significant shortcomings, including the fact that it did not prohibit the development, production, or stockpiling of chemical weapons. Also problematic was the fact that many states that used the protocol reserved the right to use prohibited weapons against states that were not party to the protocol, or as retaliation in kind if chemical weapons were used against them. Poison gases were also used during World War II in Nazi concentration camps and in Asia, although chemical weapons were not used on European battlefields. The Cold War period saw significant development, manufacture, and stockpiling of chemical weapons. By the 1930s and 80s, an estimated 25 states were developing chemical weapons capabilities. But since the end of World War II, chemical weapons have only been used in a few cases, notably in Iraq in the 1980s against the Islamic Republic of Iran. While wars are usually fought on the battlefield, the fires of war rage on elsewhere, behind enemy lines. On March 4, 2018, a murder operation was launched against a former Russian military officer and double agent in Salisbury. The victims, Sergei Skripal and Yulia Skripal, his daughter, were exposed to a class of poison known as Novichok. Novichok is an agent that was designed back during the Cold War by the Russians. This poison was delivered with lethal intent to Sergei and Yulia via a Nina Ricci perfume bottle and sprayed on the door of the family. The perfume bottle was discarded in a charity bin, but unfortunately took the life of another unrelated individual, Dawn Sturgis, and critically injured a friend, Charlie Rowley, who fell ill due to unprotected proximity. The Russian government was suspected to be the perpetrators to the crime, but the response was denial to any involvement. The two charged suspects that happened to be Russian agents, Alexander Mishkin and Anatoly Chapiga, suggest otherwise. As we can only speculate that Russia is to blame, we are also uncertain of the motives, specifically where this murder attempt was for security, as Sergei Skripal is still a threat to the KGB intelligence, or simply for revenge.